world woke up to a story that defied imagination. A sitting head of state had been taken into custody by the United States, a move unprecedented in modern history. The news spread like wildfire through international media, yet official confirmation was scarce. The target was Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, a man whose rule had long been marked by controversy, allegations of drug trafficking, corruption, and human rights abuses. Yet he remained in power, protected by military forces and a network of loyalists inside Venezuela for years. U.S. prosecutors had quietly compiled evidence of a vast narco-terrorism network allegedly operating under the protection of the Venezuelan state. This network was said to have coordinated cocaine shipments into the United States and other countries, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. The evidence included financial records, intercepted communications, shipping manifests, and witness testimony from former insiders who risked their lives to cooperate with law enforcement. For months, the operation remained secret, classified, and meticulously planned. Legal teams, intelligence agencies, and tactical units worked in parallel, ensuring that when the time came, the operation would be executed flawlessly. The arrest itself occurred during a window when Maduro's movements were minimally visible. Internationally, details of the raid remain classified, but sources indicate a coordinated operation involving special forces, extraction teams, and secure aerial transport to the United States. The unprecedented nature of the arrest created immediate diplomatic tension. Countries around the world reacted with shock, condemnation, and curiosity. The very act of detaining a sitting head of state abroad raised questions of international law, sovereignty, and human rights. Yet, U.S. officials justified the action, citing federal indictments that charged Maduro with narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation, and criminal enterprise coordination. The charges detailed how Venezuela allegedly became a hub for the transport of cocaine, using state resources to facilitate shipments, protection for traffickers, and financial operations designed to obscure the flow of illicit proceeds. The indictment named multiple co-conspirators, including military officers, financial intermediaries, and foreign operatives, while Maduro's government denied any wrongdoing. The evidence presented by U.S. authorities painted a complex picture of state-sanctioned criminal activity. The arrest sent shockwaves through Caracas state television, interrupted regular programming. Officials denied the legitimacy of the operation. Supporters rallied in protest, calling it an act of aggression. International response was divided. Some countries condemned the U.S., citing violation of sovereignty. Others remained silent. Some quietly supported the assertion that crime should have no borders within the United States. The case was treated with extreme secrecy. The indictment was filed under seal. Prosecutors coordinated closely with intelligence agencies, ensuring that every legal step complied with federal and international law. Every aspect of the transfer was monitored, from surveillance flights to secure transport routes and holding facilities. Maduro's arrival on U.S. soil marked the beginning of a legal battle unprecedented in modern times. The charges carried decades of potential sentencing, yet the significance extended beyond punishment. The trial had the potential to expose a network of corruption and criminal facilitation involving multiple governments and international actors. The courtroom itself was prepared with extraordinary security measures. Armed federal officers monitored the premises. Surveillance was constant and controlled. The media were given limited access, ensuring that the proceedings did not compromise ongoing intelligence operations. Legal scholars observed that the case would test the limits of diplomatic immunity. The Vienna Convention protects sitting heads of state from prosecution in foreign courts, yet exceptions exist for crimes unrelated to official acts. The U.S. government argued that narcotics trafficking and criminal enterprise fell outside protective immunity, creating a precedent that no leader is untouchable when involved in international criminal activity. As the courtroom proceedings approached, lawyers prepared motions, challenges, and defenses. The prosecution reviewed sealed witness lists including former traffickers, defectors, and financial analysts, each testimony carefully curated to maintain anonymity yet provide credible evidence. The global community watched as international law and domestic jurisdiction collided. Questions arose about the legitimacy of such an operation, about the balance between sovereignty and accountability. The arrest highlighted the tension between power and law enforcement. It became clear that the case was not only about one man, it was about demonstrating that criminal networks cannot hide behind political authority. For the first time in decades, the arrest of a sitting leader outside his country served as a warning to others who might exploit state power for illegal gain. The legal team prepared extensively every precedent, every international treaty examined with care. The prosecution emphasized the risk to U.S. national security and the moral imperative to hold leaders accountable. The courtroom became a battleground of strategy, law, and power as Chapter 1 closed. The world waited not just for a verdict, but for the ripple effects of an action that would reshape how nations view accountability, borders, and justice. Because once such a door is opened, it rarely closes quietly. The disappearance of immunity and the assertion of legal authority created a historic moment in global law enforcement. One question remained unanswered. Was this the beginning of a new era where no leader is above the law or merely a single event in the complicated theater of international politics? Either way, Nicolas Maduro's arrest would be studied, debated, and remembered as the moment when the line between state power and criminal accountability was tested. The first chapter of this unprecedented case file ends with the world watching, anticipating the courtroom drama that would follow, understanding that the consequences of this arrest would extend far beyond the walls of the court. The implications would touch international diplomacy, domestic politics, and the lives of millions. As the story of Nicolas Maduro in custody unfolds, Chapter 2 will explore the courtroom drama, the legal battles, the global political reactions, and the final outcome, determining not only his fate but the precedent set for leaders around the world. After Nicolas Maduro was taken into custody by the United States, the world watched in shock and disbelief. Governments, media outlets, and intelligence agencies were scrambling to understand the unprecedented situation. A sitting head of state had been removed from power under allegations of narcotics trafficking and organized crime, a move never before seen in modern history. Inside the courtroom, security was absolute. Federal officers monitored every movement, while surveillance systems captured every detail. The prosecution began with a meticulous presentation of evidence compiled over more than a decade, including financial records, intercepted communications, shipping logs, witness testimonies, and confidential intelligence reports. Each piece of evidence illustrated a pattern of state-sanctioned criminal activity, allegedly coordinated by Maduro himself, linking high-ranking officials, foreign operatives, and financial intermediaries in a complex web of drug trafficking operations. The charges included narco-terrorism, cocaine importation, and criminal enterprise coordination. These were not theoretical allegations. They were supported by multiple documents, encrypted messages, and corroborated testimonies showing active facilitation, protection, and profit sharing between between state power and organized criminal networks. Maduro's defense immediately invoked diplomatic immunity, citing the Vienna Convention and asserting that as a sitting head of state, he could not be prosecuted in a foreign court without explicit waiver of immunity. The judge permitted preliminary hearings to proceed while immunity arguments continued. Behind closed doors, the defense questioned the legality of the operation, labeling it an extrajudicial rendition and a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty, and argued that evidence collected outside the country might be inadmissible in court. The prosecution countered that narcotics trafficking and organized criminal activity fall outside protective immunity, emphasizing the direct impact of these operations on U.S. soil. The courtroom transformed into a battlefield of legal strategies. Prosecutors called multiple anonymous witnesses, including former traffickers and defectors who described meetings with Maduro and other high-ranking officials detailing shipment, coordination, financial laundering, and protection of illicit operations. These testimonies were corroborated with bank statements, phone records, and shipping documentation, creating a chain of evidence linking the highest levels of the Venezuelan government to criminal enterprise. The defense worked tirelessly to deconstruct these links, claiming political bias and circumstantial evidence, but the prosecution presented a compelling narrative, demonstrating systematic criminal facilitation. International law experts testified on the limits of head of state immunity and the legality of cross-border enforcement, highlighting how rare and complex such prosecutions are. Their analysis underscored that while immunity protects certain official acts, it cannot shield leaders from crimes such as drug trafficking or organized crime that have international consequences. Outside the courtroom, governments, analysts, and the media reacted with a mix of condemnation, caution, and muted approval. Some nations criticized the U.S. for violating sovereignty, while others quietly acknowledged the necessity of holding leaders accountable. The trial quickly became a focal point for discussions on global governance, international law, and the boundaries between political authority and criminal liability. The court proceedings lasted for weeks, featuring depositions, cross-examinations, forensic accounting, and classified hearings. The prosecution demonstrated how profits from illicit operations were laundered through shell companies and international financial systems, then reinvested into state projects and personal political campaigns. Defense attorneys challenged every detail, emphasizing procedural fairness, the importance of diplomatic protocols, and potential violations of international law. Yet the evidence continued to accumulate, illustrating a sophisticated network of criminal facilitation extending from Maduro to low-level operatives. During the trial, testimonies revealed covert meetings in hotels, government offices, and foreign embassies where decisions were allegedly made to protect trafficking routes, secure shipments, and manage financial flows. The prosecution underscored the human and societal impact of these operations, linking cocaine shipments to violent crime, public health crises, and instability both within and beyond Venezuelan borders. The defense maintained that political opponents orchestrated the allegations, applying pressure on witnesses and manipulating evidence, but the prosecution's forensic and financial experts systematically addressed these claims, reinforcing the credibility of the case. The courtroom drama continued as both sides debated legal precedents, procedural rules, and jurisdictional authority. Judges and clerks worked to balance the rights of the defendant with the imperative of public safety and international accountability. Observers noted that the trial was as much a political and diplomatic test as a legal one, because its outcome would shape global expectations for accountability and enforcement against state actors engaged in organized crime. In the final weeks, the prosecution presented closing arguments emphasizing decades of compiled evidence illustrating a clear pattern of criminal facilitation using state power. The defense reminded the court of diplomatic immunity, political context, and procedural considerations, urging caution in applying U.S. law to a sitting foreign leader. The judge, after careful deliberation, ruled that while certain official acts are protected under immunity, criminal conduct, such as narcotics trafficking, falls outside such protections, allowing the case to proceed. This landmark ruling set a historic precedent, signaling that heads of state could be held accountable for criminal activity affecting other nations. Maduro's legal team immediately filed appeals, but the prosecution's argument demonstrated that international crimes causing harm beyond borders justify federal jurisdiction. The trial concluded with extensive witness testimony, financial evidence, and operational details revealing the complexity and breadth of the alleged criminal network. International reactions continued with debates over legality, ethics, and long-term consequences, dominating political and legal discourse. The verdict and sentencing were pending, but the trial's impact was already evident. Nicolas Maduro, once untouchable, had been brought under U.S. federal law, illustrating a historic assertion of accountability for global leaders. For viewers interested in secret operations, high-profile criminal cases, and the intersection of politics and organized crime, this case serves as a definitive example of how power, crime, and law collide. If you want to explore more stories that reveal hidden truths behind international criminal networks, political intrigue, and covert operations, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.